Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint summer home with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. I'm going to first go over brushes and colors as well as supplies that you'll need. So these are the Liquitex Basics acrylics. You can use whatever brand and similar colors that you have available. We will be using titanium white, Hooker's green hue permanent, Phthalo Blue. You only need a little bit of that Phthalo Blue, but that shows up in the flowers and the flag. Napthol Crimson, Turquoise Blue only shows up in the water, so you'll only need a little bit of that. Light Olive Green, Mars Black, Burnt Umber, and Cerulean Blue. As far as the brushes that I use, we will be needing a 3/4 flat brush, a number 12 bright brush. This is about 1/2 inch wide. It's a Royal and Langnickel Majestic brush, and the other 3 are Princeton Velvet Touch brushes. These 3 come in a pack that I link to my videos because I love these Princeton Velvet Touch brushes. The number 8 round brush and the number 4 round brush, those 3 come in a pack together. And I found using a T-square ruler and a pencil helpful for this, especially since we're drawing a house and it kind of helps to get your lines straight for that. Let's go ahead and get started. So 11 by 14 inch canvas, you'll want to place it in the horizontal mode. And this is a landscape style painting. So with most landscape paintings, almost all landscape paintings have a horizon line, and I am measuring 5.5 inches from the top of the canvas. So make a little mark 5.5 inches down from the top and take your ruler. I like using the T-square because you can line it up to the edge of the canvas and get your nice horizontal line. So that's the first line we're going to do. We're going to do another line later, but for now we have the area where the sky is going to be. So everything above that line is going to be the sky in our painting. And I am loading my palette with the colors Cerulean Blue and Titanium White. So you really only need a little bit of that blue. That blue actually goes a long way, and it's kind of a dark blue for a sky. But when we add white into this kind of blue, we get this really pretty sky blue color. So I am going to start by mixing equal parts blue and white together. You're going to lighten that blue up, and this will be the darker part of the sky actually. It's going to get lighter and lighter as we go work our way down. So this sky is going to be just kind of big angled paint strokes going in all kinds of directions. If you prefer, you can do just left and right strokes across the canvas if you don't like that textured look. But a lot of times I like to do this textured look in the sky. And so I'm going to start at the top, go all the way across with these big angled paint strokes, and then below that, add a little bit more white to your brush so that your sky lightens up. When you add a little bit of white towards the horizon line, it kind of gives your sky a little bit of perspective where it's darker at the top and lighter towards the horizon line. And I'm just letting those colors sort of blend on the canvas. So there's like different variations in this color. It might not be blending all the way. A little bit more white towards the bottom. It's okay if your color goes below your horizon line. We'll go back and kind of paint. That's the area where that lake is going to be. So a little bit more white towards the bottom. It should turn a very light blue at the bottom. A little bit of water because this is drying fast. It is a relatively thin layer. I'm not applying this paint super thick. It'll be thin. I'm going to go back, add some more of that darker blue at the top, and mostly because I don't want to waste this cerulean blue on my palette. Did not end up needing that much blue because we won't really be using this blue later. Actually, we could probably mix a little bit of that blue into our water when we do the water. Okay, so we don't need to let this dry. We can go ahead and do our next measurement. So this next line I'm going to measure is 1.5 inches below your horizon line. So this area is going to be our lake, or it could be the ocean. And so 1.5 down from the horizon line. Of course, if you're working on a different size canvas, you'll want to kind of adjust your proportions. The horizon line is actually right in the center of this, so whatever size you're doing, just figure out where the exact center of your canvas is and just kind of estimate your water area. And then we're going to load our palette with the color Turquoise Blue, and that's going to be the color of our water. And since I didn't want the other blue on my palette to go to waste, I'm actually going to mix that with my blue. Take some of that, mix it together, and you'll get a pretty kind of bluish turquoise out of that. Left and right paint strokes, and just fill your entire water area. So we know there's going to be a house over here on the left, but for now, we're not really going to worry about that. We're still going to paint this water all the way across the canvas to define our lake slash seaside area of our painting. Before this dries, we actually want to add some titanium white to our palette and blend a little bit of white into this water. So some squirt of titanium white, grab your paint. I did not rinse my brush, so there's still turquoise on here. And I'm not creating those water lines yet. I'm just gently adding a little bit of white just below the horizon line so that the ocean slash lake water area is lighter just below the horizon line and it gets darker towards the bottom. Just gives that water area a little bit of color variation. I didn't really do it on the left side because my house is going to be covering part of that area anyway, so I don't want to really detail that up. I'm going to rinse, and I am going to let that dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to move down to the grass area. But you don't need to make sure that's dry before doing this step. You can still do this step. And this is Hooker's Green Hue Permanent and a 3/4 flat brush. I rinsed all that blue off the brush, and now I'm doing the green. So this is relatively simple. We want to fill everything below that water and all the way to the bottom edge of the canvas with green. So this is our land area. And we will be blending a little bit of white into this. In fact, I'm going to go about a little more than halfway down with this green, and then I'm going to blend titanium white into this green. It is a relatively thin color. You can still see canvas showing through, but this is just our first layer of grass, and we'll detail this up later. Then when you get to about more than halfway, grab white without rinsing your brush, and then blend the white on the bottom of the canvas up into your green. And you are creating a gradient of dark green to light green at the bottom. I'll get a little bit more white on my palette. So this doesn't have to be super light at the bottom, just a noticeable difference of light blended to dark. So now we have the first layer of paint on our palette, our canvas. There should be no blank canvas anywhere. We have sky, water, and ground. We need to let this dry because the next step involves drawing the house. So let it dry, come back, and have a pencil and T-square ruler ready for the drawing. So we're going to do some more measuring here. We're going to start by doing the bottom line of the house. And this is going to be 6.5 inches from the left side of the canvas. So my line is not exactly on that green line. It's just maybe a slither, maybe an 1/8 inch below that green line where the lake starts. So the house isn't right on the bottom of the lake. It's just a little bit below. So I'm actually going to take a piece of chalk and kind of go over that so you can see it better. Although you can draw with chalk or pencil, it's kind of up to you. But this chalk is more visible on the camera than the pencil. And So after you did your horizontal 6.5-inch line, go ahead and measure this vertical line on the right. That one is 2.5 inches high. And then we want to do the side of the house where the door is going to be. So this is going to be a 3-inch measurement. I'm going to take this and mark about 3 inches right here. And I'm going to take this, and this is going to form into a rectangular shape. So 2.5 inches high by 3 inches wide. So there's the front of our house where that door is going to be. And then I need to figure out where to start doing the pitch of this roof. So I need to make this little point. I kind of estimated the center over here on the left, and it's 5.5 inches from the bottom edge of the house. And you make a little point, and then you just connect 2 diagonal lines. Your diagonal line over here on the left is going to go off the edge of the canvas, so we're not going to see the bottom part of that roof. And I'm kind of giving it more shape, so just above my first set of lines, I'm kind of sketching this. This line down here goes kind of below the right rectangle area and goes over here a little bit off the right side. I can use my ruler to draw a horizontal line that connects that top part and this part right here. See how this kind of like points outwards? And then I can erase any excess lines sticking out right here. So now we have basic house drawing, and we can start painting our house in. So I'm going to start with the bottom parts of the house, and that's only black and white. And I'm using the number 12 bright brush, a 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm going to make kind of a light gray color, mixing a whole bunch of white and just a little bit of black. And then I'm going to start at the bottom of the house and do horizontal lines. So I'm going to just do horizontal lines all throughout this part of the house. So this side of the house is actually going to look darker and more shadowy. And the part on the left side is going to be lighter. And that's how I'm going to get those two areas to kind of stand out from each other. So I'm thinking a little bit more black over here for this entire rectangle that I'm painting in. But also we don't need to have our colors blend all the way. So we can use the tip of the brush to outline the shape of the rectangle, but then use the full width of the brush to drag the paint left and right paint strokes. See right here, I want to make sure that's a little bit extra shadowy right there. A little bit more black in that area. Drag it into the rest. It doesn't have to be the same consistent color throughout. There's a little bit of variation. Gives it a little bit more of that rustic look in the house. Just dragging my paint. It's okay if it's not blending all the way. It's okay if it's a little bit lighter over here on the right side. It's just I wanted to make sure it's extra shadowy on the left. Then I'm going to paint the left side of the house. And this one, right here, right away we're doing a lighter color gray. This is why. It's because I wanted this to stand out from the part on the right. A little bit extra white on my brush, dragging this over. And the rest of the house, or the rest of this side of the house, is going to be kind of a lighter gray, although I could have some darker shadowy areas in there if I wanted to. I'm going to use the tip of the brush to outline that angle, and then left and right paint strokes to fill this in. So as we're painting this, you should not be seeing water showing through this, especially since white is such an opaque color. It should have really good coverage over that water. If some of the water is still showing through, you can kind of go over it with a second coat of paint. Using the tip of the brush to really outline the bottom. There's going to be some bushes down here kind of disguising the bottom edge of the house, but I still want to paint it in and define it. So this gray is just blending gently and not all the way, dragging the brush left and right. to create this horizontal texture in the house. We'll go back over this later with the round brush and do some brick, very simple brick paint strokes in there. But for now, we just want to make sure it's all covered, and I'm going to go in and make sure this line right here is nice and defined. I'm going to take my black on the tip of that, make a little bit more shadowy right here where that roof is going to be hanging off over the edge of the house. I'm going to add maybe a little bit more shadow over here on the left side of the house, over lower left corner area, just a tad bit more black over there. Okay, so we're going to do the roof next, and we need the color Burnt Umber on our palette, and we'll be using our 12 bright brush. I decided not to rinse the brush, although if yours is kind of overloaded with too much gray, you can rinse the brush. So load that in a little bit of the brown. And then over here on the left, you want to use the edge of your brush to outline, but you want to make a thick line, so about an 1/8 of an inch thick to make this part of the roof thick. And then same over here, another thick line. So this one actually goes down and over. And this bottom edge of the roof, see how it overlaps that very, very top edge of the house, and then it goes outside over here. And then this, we're just going back over what we drew, and this horizontal line across. So when you have the shape defined, then you can start painting it in. I'm doing all horizontal strokes for this. So I'm just dragging my paintbrush in a horizontal direction. I'm not going to go into details and do shingles or any other like tiles or anything, but if you wanted to go into detail with this roof, you are welcome to. You can add a little bit of shading or highlighting later, but really was just trying to keep it simple. You can grab a little bit of white on your brush without rinsing, and over here, just kind of go back over that line and do a little bit of lighter color at the top to help highlight that. Do the same thing to this angle right here, a little bit of white, and the same thing for this bottom edge. This really helps to kind of get that to stand out better. Top edge, and then just kind of take this and drag it down in a diagonal direction. I kind of switched from horizontal to diagonal. Just kind of let this sort of blend together. We have brown, we have white on our brush. I'm kind of making it a little bit more shadowy towards the bottom, a little bit kind of more light at the top. But again, I decided to change my angle to diagonal instead of horizontal. If you want, you can do all horizontal, or if you want, you can do all diagonal. You can kind of figure out what style works best. And then right here, a little bit of white right there on the edge, and just dragging that down. Little pop of extra lighter at the top by dragging the brush down and letting it kind of blend gently with that darker part of the roof at the top. Let me go back and define this. That angle got kind of floppy there, but there we go. So I'm not going to overwork this. I'm going to just kind of let that be for now. I can add details later if I wanted to. Next, we're going to do the path. So let's keep that brown on our brush without rinsing it. And let's grab a little bit more white on the tip of our brush. So this color of the path is burnt umber and white mixed together. Of course, there's a little bit of gray still on my brush. So if you rinsed your brush, just kind of make a light brown color with a bunch of white and a little bit of brown. And we're just using the tip of the brush to just kind of let loosely left and right paint strokes that lead to this side of the house where our door is going to be, and our path gets wider as we work our way down the canvas. And you're going over your green. So you have a little bit of green kind of showing through, but we're really going through for this kind of rustic dirt path here. Kind of leads and gets narrow towards the edge of the door. If you want it darker, you can add a little bit more brown to your paintbrush. But just on the edges, see how the edges are just kind of not very smooth. They kind of go over the green a little bit, but not all the way. So it's not a perfectly smooth path. There's a little bit of color variation in there. Next, we are going to do the greenery that is along the horizon line. So little kind of bushes, shrubbery way in the distance behind our water area or above the water area. And so I have the Hooker's green hue and I'm mixing a little bit of white with it just to kind of lighten it up. And I'm using the 12 bright brush and I'm just kind of tapping the brush to create this little line of kind of bushy area. So just using the tip of the brush, just kind of tapping it, that creates that texture. And you can create a variety of heights in this. So some of it is kind of lower, some of it goes a little bit higher, and just along the edge. So we're working above that horizon line. And it's okay if a little bit of that kind of goes over the water area, but for the most part, it's got to be kind of flat on the bottom. Like a few of those areas a little bit higher. And I'm going to wipe my brush off, or you can use a towel to wipe it off. And I'm going to drag this green down in a vertical direction. So this is creating reflection in the water from this greenery way in the distance. And because I wiped the brush off, there's only a little bit of paint on the brush. So it's really see-through and in a vertical direction. So that creates that kind of reflection effect. And I'm going to rinse my brush off and move along to my number 8 round brush. So this is the brush I love because of the point to it. If you don't have this exact brush, find a brush that's small and it's got has a nice point to it, because we're doing detail work here. I'm basically taking this white and just doing very light left and right paint strokes. This is creating reflection in the water. Our water lines are longer towards the bottom and shorter in the back. That creates perspective in your water. And yes, you're going over that part that we just did, the vertical lines from the green. So this is the white reflection. I left kind of an area in the middle blank without water lines because that is going to be where I am going to paint the sailboat. But before I paint the sailboat, I actually want to go back and add a little darker layer over here, just on the bottom. This is going to help my greenery kind of stand out and kind of divide where that water starts and where the green part, land part starts. So I'm taking black and green. So this is a very, very dark green. Adding a little black to that green is going to darken it. And I'm just doing little dots. This is still the number 8 round brush. Little kind of dotted textured paint strokes right along this edge of the shore. Remember, this is way in the distance, so it doesn't have to be super detailed. Just a little bit more here. And then you want to go ahead and rinse the number 8 round brush off. So start with a fresh, clean number 8 round brush, and we're going to paint the sailboat next. And let's start with pure titanium white. I'm loading my brush in just the white, and I'm going to paint the sails first. So I'm going to do a little sailboat over here. Now, if that greenery and little dark area that we just painted is too wet, you can wait for it to dry a little bit before doing this step. I'm going to start by doing my left sail, so kind of like a semicircle shape with a vertical edge. And this part right here, leave a little bit of a gap and do like a little triangle shape that kind of curves inwards. And you're painting both of those shapes in solid white. I'll wipe the brush off and grab the black, and I'm using the very, very end of this brush, the little tip of the brush, so use your fine detail brush if you're not using this 8-round brush. Vertical line down the center between those two shapes, and then I'm going to do the little boat. So horizontal line and then a curved line, and then paint that in solid black. You could do a colorful sailboat. I just wanted to kind of keep it simple and do black and white. Do a little bit of reflection below the boat, little kind of loose black left and right paint lines. I'm going to grab the white and do a little bit more reflection below that for the sail reflection. And that is it for our simple sailboat. I'm going to do the tree next, and I'm going to be using this number 8 round brush for the tree. Rinse that brush off and load it into burnt umber and a little bit of black. We're going to start, I'm adding a little bit of water in here just to kind of loosen it up as well. We're going to start with this very dark color for the tree. And I'm going to use the tip of the paintbrush to kind of sketch my trunk. So my trunk kind of opens a little bit wider at the bottom, kind of trumpets open, and then it gets very narrow as we work our way up. So I'm just using the brush to kind of sketch the shape of that tree. It branches out into 2 main branches. So that first branch went all the way to the top edge of the canvas. This second branch is going to go kind of this way and off the edge of the canvas. You might find by adding little bits of water into your paint helps with the flow. There's a third branch, comes out here to the side of the canvas. Most of my branches are kind of going off to the right. I didn't want to do main branches going towards the left because there's already a lot going on in the left side of the painting. So I did kind of a simple 3 branches, and they're just kind of going off the edges of the canvas. Our tree canopy is going to go a little bit more towards the left, but it's not going to be super branchy. So this step is optional. If you don't like highlighting the tree, you don't have to do this step, but without rinsing, I just grabbed a little bit of white on the brush, and I'm very kind of loosely adding that lighter color just on the far left edge of that tree, and just kind of blending that gently on the left side of my tree, and leaving the right side of that tree darker, shadowy, but just adding that little touch of white in there kind of helps to make that tree color pop a little bit on the left. Do a few more branches in there. With this brush, you can use very, very light pressure to get your branches to be nice and thin. We are going to use the 12 bright brush, that's that little flat brush, for the leaves of the tree next. And let's load our palette with, this color is called light olive green. If you don't have light olive green, you could use any kind of light green you have available. You can even mix some yellow into your hooker's green hue, so it's kind of like a light yellowish green color. And so I used that into the tree canopy just to introduce a different kind of green in this painting. And we have, this is hooker's green hue, so some more of that on my paint palette. And if you are out of Mars Black, load a little tiny bit of black onto this. So this is the 12 bright brush. I'm mixing just a teeny tiny bit of black into my green, the darker green. So this is going to make a very, very dark green, almost black. So we're going to start by kind of stamping the brush to form the tree canopy. So we want to start dark with our leaves, and we want to eventually just kind of build up lighter colors. So we're doing our dark shadowy layer first. And you can see that I'm working in kind of clusters, these like kind of horizontal curved clusters, and leaving a lot of that blue sky showing through in between each of the little bundles of dark green leaves. And then I'm going to add just the dark green to my brush. So we're going to allow our little bundles of leaves to kind of get lighter. So I'm just kind of going back over what I just painted, a little bit more of this lighter green color in there. But it's still showing up dark because we're just using the dark green. But then start adding little bits of the light olive green and just continue to kind of stamp your little canopy areas of the trees, little bundles, and some of them kind of start to dip downwards over here on the left. And little bits of white as well adds little pops of highlight in there. You're just building your leaves from dark to light. I'm going to have some of the branches over here at the top kind of go out a little bit further more towards the left, so it's not all going like in a column. It's kind of wider at the top of the tree. And this next step is optional, so if you want to go back and add some of the branches that we just covered up, so maybe there's just these loose little branch lines that are showing between some of these bundles of leaves. So you can take your 8-round brush or your little detail brush and the brown and just do a few little branch lines in there. And next we're going to go back to our little flat brush and I'm going to start to texture up our flat grassy area. So just grab some of the light olive green, some of the darker green, and just create little areas. So started here at the base of the tree and then over here kind of at the base, the shore bank area where this meets the water, just little bunches of uneven grassy areas to give this a little bit of texture. So because we're stamping it, it's creating kind of a different effect than the first layer. The first layer is flat and horizontal strokes. These are textured, kind of thick paint strokes. I'm going to do this along the path as well, just little bunches, little stamped areas of greenery. I put more of the Hooker's green here, the dark green on my palette, so I'm going to do a little bit of this over here in the bottom on each side of the path. It's not necessarily very thick. It's kind of thin. A lot of that first layer is showing through. And I'm not going to do this everywhere, just kind of here and there. I did it along the path, a little bit at the base of the tree, and along the end of the water area. I do want to add a little bit of shadowing under the tree trunk, and I'm just going to use the green for this and my flat brush. And I'm just going to kind of take this and do left and right flat strokes using the tip of the paintbrush. Just do very loose left and right under your tree trunk. That gives it kind of that darker area, shadowy area under your tree. We are going to move along and start adding more details to the house, including our door and windows. So I'm going to rinse all of my brushes off, and I need the color Napthol Crimson. And also I decided to get some fresh water for this, so rinsed my water cup. This is the number 8 round brush that I'm going to start with. I'm using this brush for the little point to it. If you don't have the 8 round, use a brush that has a fine detail, little tiny round brush for that. And I'm just going to sketch the door shape. I'm using my T-square to help me with these lines. So I'm lining my T-square to the bottom edge of the canvas, and I am doing 2 vertical lines and a horizontal line for the door, and then doing a horizontal line on the bottom. So sketching the shape of the door out first, and I'm also going to sketch the shape of the windows as well. So when you're using the ruler to help you paint, just be sure to kind of wipe the edges of the ruler so you're not smudging your painting. So I'm taking this and I can line it up to the top edge of the door. So that'll be the bottom edge of my window. And of course, if you want to change the style of the window or the door, the size and heights of them, you can. So there's the width, and I'm going to do a window with shutters. So this horizontal line is going to end up being a little bit wider. Then I'm going to do a vertical line, horizontal, and bring this over just a little bit more so it's a little bit wider, and then vertical. And then we can divide this up a little bit so that there's shutters. I'm going to do vertical line. Use the ruler to help me. And then another vertical line. If it's not perfect, that's okay. We're not going for perfection with this house. We're just having fun. And we can start painting our door in. So I'm going to switch to the number 12 bright brush and start with the red and add a little bit of black to the red. So it's going to be a dark red. Just a teeny dot of black in your red is all you need. I'm doing full width paint strokes starting at the bottom, and I did a little bit darker on the bottom and then just a little bit lighter at the top, kind of going for that rustic look with this door. You're welcome to change the color of the door if you want to do a turquoise door or a blue door. You can even get into detail. You can paint a wreath on the door, do a window through the door. You can make your door a little bit higher. I'm going to go back to my round brush and I'm going to do a frame around the door. Titanium white. I'm going to use the tip of this round brush for this detailed step. So I'm just going to outline around. You can go on the outside of what you just painted, or you can go on the inside. I'm just going right along the outside of that shape to outline the door to make a door frame. Horizontal. And then let's grab the black. So you can rinse the brush, or you don't have to rinse the brush. You can just grab the black and it'll be dark enough. And go on the outside of that frame. So I'm just going a very, very thin, much thinner line than what I just did with the white on the outside of that. And I'm going to do a little bit of an indication that there's steps here, although this is kind of in the distance, so it can be a little bit more abstract. So I'm going to do like this horizontal line below, or there's just one step. We're not really sure. It's kind of a little bit in the distance. But I did this like kind of thick horizontal line under the door. And do dark right under that so that it stands out a little bit. So there's like a step up from the path to the door. And a little doorknob right in the middle on the right side. The white, just doing a little white dot. Again, you can detail this up even further. You can add panels to your door, so you can do like little rectangular light red panels on here, frames. Ended up not liking how this looks, so I'm going to paint it to kind of show you what you can do to kind of decorate that, but I'm going to end up going back over it. So using the light red. So if you like that look, you can kind of keep that. Again, you could paint like a wreath on the door or a window. I'm just going to go back and paint over that. Go back to my red and go back over that. Keep it simple. Then I'm going to paint the window in. So I'm going to rinse both of the brushes off. And I'll do red shutters. I thought about adding yellow to the palette so the inside of the window has like a warm yellow glow like the light is on. But I decided to leave yellow out to kind of simplify the paint palette color choices a little bit. But if you want to do yellow, you can. So this is still the 12 bright brush, and all I did was paint that middle rectangle shape a solid coat of titanium white. And then without rinsing the brush, grab your red, and we can do horizontal strokes and let that red and white kind of blend together to paint the shutters. So we're already starting to get the texture of these shutters just by going in this kind of horizontal direction. So I'm dragging my brush this way. Some of that white is blending with the red, but not all the way. So you get kind of these streaks of white in there. And it also gives it more of that rustic look. A little bit more red to these shutters. Actually, I made this one over here on the right a little bit wider, and I can adjust the size, and the one on the left. But again, we don't have to go for perfection if our window is not accurate in size, if our door is not accurate in size, that's okay. I'm going to rinse this off and go back to my my 8 round brush that has the little detail tip, or use your little detail brush if you have one. Grab black. I'm going to do the lines on our window. So assuming this isn't like super thick white, it should go over it. If it's not, you could wait till that dries a little bit. So just do a little plus sign in the window. And I'm going to do the frame. So black on the top, black on the sides, basically outlining that entire rectangle with black. If you want to detail this up further, you can do like a little cat in the window. You can do different colored shutters. You can do a window box with flowers. I'm just going to make this shutter a little bit wider on the left side. And do horizontal lines with that dark color, very, very thin horizontal lines. Get that kind of texture, horizontal texture in the shutters. Horizontal lines on each side. We are next going to paint the bricks of the house. I'm going to do a very simple kind of loose brick pattern, nothing too complex, but I'm going to take the number 4 round brush. This is the first time we're using this brush in this painting. Load a little bit of water on the brush and make like a kind of a medium to light gray color on your palette. And you're just taking that color and doing little tiny horizontal marks throughout the side of the house. So it gives you a little bit of this kind of abstract brick texture on the house. If it's not showing up, you may need to either lighten or darken the color that you're using. Mine is lighter than the color of the house, so it's showing up. I can do a few bricks that are kind of darker, so I can add a little bit more black to my brush. So like right here, some of that's showing up. I can do a little variation in color. Next, I'm going to switch back to the number 8 round brush, and on the very, very tip of the brush, I'm going to grab some black and do horizontal line right there in the bottom edge of the roof. And then I'm going to take this and do this diagonal line. So I am the very, very edge of that shape. I am outlining that with black. It really helps to define the shape. I'm going to erase any leftover chalk that we have. You can use a clean wet paintbrush and use that to get chalk off if you drew your house with chalk. I'm going to detail this further by doing a rose vine that's kind of growing on the side of this house. And you can definitely change this to something else. You can do ivy growing on the house. But this is the number 8 round brush with a little point to it on the end, so I can do these detail lines. I had black on my brush, or actually loading the black that was on the brush, but loading it into the green. So now the green is kind of this dark green color. And I'm just painting this vine that's kind of growing on the side of the house. I'm going to take this and do another vine that's kind of growing under the window horizontally. And take this up a little bit further. And then I'm going to do, we're not going to do the bushy area on the bottom just yet. I just did a little bit, but I'm going to actually do the roses next. So rinse the 8 round brush and grab your red. You can also introduce another color if you want to do pink. I'm going to actually use the 4 round for this. It's easier to do like rounded circle shapes with the 4 round than it is the 8 round. So red and white and just little kind of rose shapes, little circle blobs along your vine. And you can grab your white and just do another like little layer of these little kind of like curved lines inside of your blobs. Gives it that kind of a rose look. And so it doesn't have to be super detailed because it's far away. You don't have to render it realistic. You can do some leaves on our vine too. So grabbing the 8 round back and using the green and just do little leaves kind of all throughout your vine. Then I'm going to do the bushy area. So this is going to be kind of the base of where our hydrangea flowers are going to be growing later on in this painting. But let's just start with a very, very dark green. So this is the little flat brush, the 12 Bright, and I have the green with a little bit of black in it so that my first layer is dark. And I'm just stamping using the tip of this brush, this kind of bushy area that lives on the bottom edge of the house. We can create another little bushy area on the right side of the house, kind of overlapping the far right edge. And just like in the tree where we started dark and we worked our way up with lighter green, then you can start going over that first layer with lighter green colors, going over your shadow layer, and that helps to build depth and gives your bushy area some highlight. Again, these are going to have little flowers on them later. You can grab just a teeny bit of white on the brush and incorporate some of that white in there to brighten up more of that. So if you want more of like this simple flower look in the bushes, you can just take your red and do like little dots in the bushes. I will be doing hydrangeas on these later. The hydrangeas add a really pretty effect with the landscape, but that's a simple thing you can do, just little red dots. I would like to paint the flag next, so we're going to do a little American flag kind of hanging on a pole over here. I'm going to just take the 8 round brush and black and do a little diagonal line and go back to my 4 round. And at the end of that diagonal line, we'll do a little dot for the top of the pole. And then I'm going to do the flag. So this is just, it's going to start out as just a layer of white, and we want to do this hanging flag. So it's not going to be a rectangle shape. It's just going to be a little bit more triangular just because of how it's laying. So you're just doing kind of imagine that rectangle shape if it was just drooping down what that would look like. Kind of a little bit more triangular, maybe a little bit flat, kind of on the bottom edge of it. And I'm going to let that dry before adding the stars and stripes to it. So then I'm going to go and do some larger grass pieces on the very bottom edge of the canvas. So this is going to be the base for these kind of columned flowers that are going to be growing down here at the bottom of the painting. So I'm just taking different greens. We can get some more Hooker's green hue on our palette. We can use a combination of that and our olive green. You can even add a little bit of black or white in there. It just has to stand out against this. This part of the grass area should be light because we added white in that area, so it should show up. We're just doing different lengths of grass down here. And then some of these are actually going to be flowers. I do this on the other side of the path as well. And then I'm going to make a few of these that are extra long. So these are going to be the stems for these flowers that I'm going to add. I'm going to rinse the brush off and introduce the color Phthalo Blue to the palette. This is the first time we're using Phthalo Blue. So I'll use this phthalo in the color of the flowers, but also in the flag. So I'm taking the number 4 round brush and I'm double loading it in the Phthalo Blue and the titanium white. And I'm going to do these little tiny column or little petals to create a column for these flowers that are on the bottom of this painting. So when you double load the blue and the white, you get different color variations in that. And you're just doing little kind of oval paint strokes. I'm starting at the top and just kind of working my way down. Go back with some white for that one. And we'll do 3 blue flowers over here on the right and 3 over on the left. They're kind of going at different angles, different heights. And we can introduce, or we can use red as well for a different color. And without rinsing the brush, I'll just let some of this blue mix with the red, and might create kind of a purple looking flower. So this is the Napthol Crimson, and same thing. I'll do a long one over here. Some pretty red, white, and blue flowers. Another little red one down here. Next, I'm going to add the stars and stripes to the flag. And for this, I want to go back to my number 8 round brush because I want to do detail work for this step. So let's rinse our number 4 round brush off and let's get the number 8 round brush. I'm going to start with the Phthalo Blue, and I'm going to paint this kind of rectangular area, upper right corner. So just a little blue area, solid. Then rinse that off and do the stripes. So I'm going to do red. So with these stripes, we don't have to make them straight. We do want to leave a little gap for the white stripes, but you can see how they kind of curve and run into each other. It's just the way the flag is hanging. So you would do these very loose, kind of wavy red lines that kind of run into each other. And you don't have to do the exact number of stripes. I'm going to rinse and still the same brush in titanium white, and I'm going to do little white dots for the stars just on the blue area. And again, the little stars do not have to be evenly spaced apart. I'm going to do one more little stripe down here. It just kind of disappears. I am going to next use this number 4 round brush to do some more little grass textures kind of all throughout the landscape. This is an optional detail that you don't have to add to your painting, but I'm just going in there, little tiny pieces of grass kind of growing sparingly throughout. You can kind of think about perspective for this. So some of the grass pieces that are lower in the painting would be higher, longer. The ones that are further away, kind of closer together and not as tall. The last optional detail we can do to this painting is the hydrangeas. I really think this adds to the character of this painting, having the hydrangea flowers in these bushes. So basically all you do is start with your phthalo blue layer and paint a little kind of circular area with dots. Go back over with your white and add more dots over it, and the blue and the white will blend together to create this like little ball of flowers, and they're just little dots with the different variations of color of blue and white. So the blue ones don't really stand out too much, but the red ones will stand out. And so I just kind of did 4 blue flowers in this bush over here on the right, rinse the brush, and then do a little area, little dotted area, circular area of red and white. The red and white little dots will create that hydrangea flower. Adding the little white dots on it, that really helps to get those to pop. And then I'm going to add more of these flowers over here on the left. So again, making little circular areas of dots with blue and white, and then red and white. And then the last final optional detail that I'm going to do is a little bit more on the house with the number 4 round brush. A few more brick pieces over here on the right. And then I took this white and very loosely, this isn't a solid, super opaque white line. It's just a very loose kind of dry brush line with a little bit of white. So I outline the far right edge of the roof, and I'm just barely letting this brush skid the surface of the canvas. And I'm just doing very loose, light horizontal lines on the roof and just in that kind of right area, but still leaving the bottom left part shadowy. And that is it. I wanted to go into way more details with this, but I had to stop myself. There's so many different creative things that you can add to this summer home landscape painting. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.